Okay, I think now's a good time to start. It's just turned 7 o'clock over here. Yeah, so first of all, welcome everyone to the webinar on remote digital triage with AskMyGP. Obviously, with a particular focus on how this is helping in the COVID-19 crisis. Just quickly, I'll just go over some of the basic rules for today before I hand over to Harry Longman, our presenter today. Just essentially just to keep your webcams and microphones off during the presentation. I mean, this is just to avoid any sort of background noise. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please put them in the chat box and we can address them at the end of the presentation and have a discussion on that. If you would like to also ask or speak at the end of the presentation, then please switch on your microphone just to indicate that you want to say something. We'll try and do this one at a time if it gets a bit busy. And finally, the session will be recorded. So if anyone has an issue with that, please let me know and I'll get back to you. Okay, so without further ado, I'll hand over to Harry Longman. Harry, if I can make you the presenter, then I think you can share your screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Tom.
No problem. There we go.
Okay, so should I be able to share my screen now?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm trying. I'm clicking the button. It says you have to make me presenter.
Okay.
Meanwhile, hello everyone. How nice to see you. And sorry it's not face to face, but there are the wonders of technology make this possible. I have met some people here, I think. Elamal, I recognize your name. Hi. I'm not sure about others, but I think you're from many different countries. I will try to, okay, I will try to speak reasonably slowly, and you should now be able to see the first screen. Thank you all very much for learning English and speaking my language. I'm sorry I can't speak all of yours, but we'll do the best. What I wanted to do today was talk about how AskMyGP works and how we're doing so much more online now. But first of all, to think about why. And if we can answer that question, then how is going to be easier. We come from a background of an intervention, a change program with practices. They are all different. They are no two the same. So we also say, you know, you put your practice name here. And we want them to think, first of all, about what they want to achieve. And the outside-in way to look at a general practice is what is it like to be a patient? And they often have, you know, very strong views on that. People's work is important. So we talk about what's your ideal work, what are your hopes, and indeed your fears about change. Do you have a problem you wish to solve? I don't know about your problems in different parts of the EFPC world. In the UK, it's simply too much work and we can't meet the demand from patients very, very commonly. And that is important to solve, but it won't take you the whole way. I think to sustain that change, you need to have a burning ambition of where we want to go to. So as a system then, understanding where you are is important, because if we're going to make change, we need to know where we're coming from and how this will solve the problem. There are variations, but very often we have, at the moment, quite a simple idea of patient phones in, they get a request assigned to a GP in an appointment, but then we have this problem of all gone, call back tomorrow. There are no appointments left. Or it's a very long wait, 3 weeks is not uncommon. And that drives did not attend, you know, the patient doesn't attend. Or you have an argument with reception, is it urgent? It actually depends on who you ask. The patient may have a view, the GP may have a different view. And then you lose continuity because you see the wrong GP within the practice and then go round again. So people are working very hard, but it's not the fault of the people or the patients. It's not a lack of motivation. It's because the system doesn't help. And we have overwork and rework. So if we're going to make things better, then we have to look at the system and change the system, not simply bolt on software. The good news is that because of all this rework being in the system, if we can take it out, then without changing the patients or the world around us or our staff, we can have a much better system which works for patients and for GPs and their staff. So how do we think about demand? I'm afraid to say many people think of demand, patient demand, as just so much, it's going to fall on us, it's been waiting, and it's a wall, like a wall of water behind a dam. Really, it's very different from that. It's like a wave. So it has regular patterns, and they're very predictable. And now if we can understand that, we can organize our system to respond to that, then we're going to have a very good life. This is actual demand in the hours of 8 to 6 with our practices. You can see that we look at 1 line per day. This is Monday. And across all UK practices, it is very similar. I suspect across practices around the world, it's quite similar. And we need to understand that and then design our system around this demand pattern. Then, of course, the same demand, the same flow of water feels like this, very different, stress-free. So that's where we're trying to go. And we talk about unlearning, the need to unlearn. Supply-led thinking says, you know, we have GPs and they have time. We supply that time in appointment slots, okay? And then we put the patients in the slots. They're all different patients, all different sizes and shapes, needs. Oh, and sometimes we run out. So this patient didn't get a slot. While in the new system, we are thinking about a demand-led idea, which says we respond to the patient's unique needs. And it turns out that when we do that, it's much less work. We are only doing just what is needed for each patient, nothing more, nothing less. Same patients, but less work. Now, the patients, okay, they also have something to unlearn. And they have been thinking, I want an appointment, I need an appointment, because that is everything that they offer, appointments. And actually what they want is help with my medical problem from someone I trust. And patients make this transition actually very easily. So how do we do it? Well, there's a piece of theory which is quite important here, which is the mode of communication. And if we think about it in terms of place, it could be remote or local. And in time, synchronous means at the same time, or asynchronous means at different times. The internet works with remote asynchronous messaging. That's why it's so efficient and low cost. So we begin with AskMyGP in that remote asynchronous place, but we can't necessarily solve everything there. So we may need a telephone call. GP decides telephone call or video, small number of video, but or we're going to see them face to face because clinically we need to see them, and that's important. Or we can deal with this by message or prescription or something like that. We have seen roughly 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of each of these methods. Now in the COVID crisis, that has changed drastically, and we will look at some data later on. So here's the theory. Now the question is, how can we make this work in practice? Well, we have to design a new system, and I will just explain our design thinking. You remember the potato peeler. It works, but it's not very nice. we thought, well, can we do a huge machine full of AI, which is amazing? We tried that. Doesn't work. Actually, the design thinking is like this. We're going to make it as simple as possible, as comfortable and easy to use. And then people will immediately see the benefit. So we are getting the computers to do what computers do well. Things like sending messages, calculations, searches, analytics. But the humans do what the humans do well, which is make decisions, help people. So as a system, then the concept here is we begin with the patient request, so not a patient appointment. This is a patient request. Who are you? What is your problem? We've gathered that, and then we have somebody who assigns that or sorts it to who is the person who will help them. So this is not necessarily a clinical role, it's just who will help. It could be a doctor, a GP. It could be any other clinician. It could be pharmacist, physio, nurse, anything within the team. Or it could be an administrating person who is going to sort out the letter or the sick note or whatever else. And then the clinician has the choice of, am I going to message you, send a message, telephone, video, or do I need to see you face to face? You decide. Okay. Oh yeah, this new role. Well, I don't know whether you recognize this. It's what we call the Harry Potter sorting hat, and this is all the role of the person here. They're going to be the sorter. And just a few words on how to be a sorter. The first thing is what we call in English common sense. I don't have any common sense, by the way. I'm no good for this role, but some people do. Fairness, because you're dividing out the work between your team. You need to be on the task, because nobody will do any work until you've sorted. So keep this going. But don't try to problem solve. You don't need to think too much about this. Some doctors like to have a go at sorting, and then they start to think, oh, I can do that one. I can do... No, don't do that. You just give it to somebody else or yourself for later. Because the happy sorter is the person who has nothing left in the new list. It's all been assigned out to everyone else. And yes, it's quick and easy. It's one click to do it, but it's an important role in the practice. Now, having talked about the design, the hardest bit is actually moving the patients from their traditional, I telephone or I visit for an appointment to I go online. And the design of the system must be ever so simple. So we give them a choice. They can go phone or they can go online. Any problem. Computer never says no. Computer says, tell me your details, we'll send them on. Send them on. It's personal, so the GP will respond, and very fast, usually under an hour. Quite easy to do. And your needs are met today. So if you need to be seen or spoken to, it will be today. Unless you can't do today, in which case it can be tomorrow. But we're seeing 90% finished, resolved the same day. And nobody is turned away. So, the computer never says no. You may be thinking then, well, okay, how are we going to tell all our patients? I might have 10,000 patients or 5,000, 1,000, however many. A lot of people. And we need to get them to behave in a different way. There is wonderful good news. Today, 99% of them don't care. They do not want to hear from you. They don't bother them. It's just a waste of effort. You only need to think about these people who want help today, because they will call you and they want to know the message of how to get the new kind of help. So they're ready to receive. And we've got a way of getting them to that very, very simply. The first thing they hear is a telephone message recorded by the GP who says, we've got a new system, find the website, click AskMyGP, get help easier, faster. They hear that message and they go there and it works. Or They hear the message and they don't believe it. So they hold on, and eventually they get through to the friendly receptionist who says, hello, yes, we mean it. Yes, that's what you need to do. It's faster, it's easier. What do you mean you can't use it? Well, do you shop online? Do you use social media? Yeah, okay, well, that's all you need. I can send you a text. Text goes there, link on the text, click that, see the website, away you go. Works. I was just talking to a guy, Mahendra Patel, who's in New Manchester. He launched this new system yesterday in 23 hours after he decided to launch it. 23 hours, it's a new record. On day one, he didn't get 80% online, he got 99% of his patients' demand online the very next day. Amazing. So receptionists are pivotal to this. Receptionists are lovely people, and they're kind people, and they like to help, but try not to say, I'll do it for you this time. It's actually going to be helping the patient to get them online right from the start, and they're very good at doing that. Be kind, you know, patients love it, so it's good for patients too. Be direct. So this is our new way of working. So it's a whole system change. But be sensitive, because some people, perhaps the most needy, will need you to put their request on the system. You can just type it straight in, very easy, and they will go into the same flow. So they will benefit from this faster service as well. Now, okay, why does it matter that we change quickly? Because there is a virtuous circle here. When you get more patients online, it's more efficient for the GPs, because patients will write more than they will say to the receptionist. And they can message the patients, which they can't if it's only by telephone. Because it's more efficient, they get a faster response. Because it's faster, patients are more confident. They say, yes, this system worked, my problem was solved, I will tell my friends. And so we're seeing this happen. And the other thing is that it's about what do you offer as a system. And it might be tempting to think, well, I like this, I just want to try a little bit, dip my fingers in. So you could book a slot, or you could have just help with your problem, and it kind of feels attractive. The problem with that is, what do you tell your patients? You know, well, it's complicated. You could try this new thing or the old thing, and then your workload is going to go up because you've still got the old system, and you're trying to do the new system, and you're kind of from here up to here, which means you're slow at responding. Because you're slow, the patients don't trust it, and you feel stressed. So all of that makes it difficult. And you're thinking, well, we are here, how do we get to there? This is our current system. Well, it's a hard life. The problem is, if you go to a hybrid in between those two things, it's a harder life, because you're trying to juggle and manage difficult things. Before you get to the easy life, you might go backwards. It's actually better over there with the easier life, but the safest way to get there is simply go straight there. And we have traditionally taken about 3 weeks to help people through that. Then they started doing it faster. We got down to 1 week. And then we had the COVID crisis, and they wanted to do it really fast. And while we still have most taking about a week, the first one to do it in 23 hours was yesterday. And I just spoke to him. He's a lovely man. He's very happy. So, okay, what could possibly go wrong? Well, you will see all patient demand. You know, whereas you used to have somebody who could turn people away, now they're not there. The patients can come in online. But here's the promise. The demand, remember the waves, is stable and predictable. And I've had so many GPs to say to me, well, if we take the dam away, we will be buried in water, overwhelmed, and it doesn't happen. And we keep showing them the evidence. Here is the evidence from all of our practices. You can see there's a bit of seasonality. I've just pulled out one example in red. You know, they launched there, they've just been going. There's summertime, wintertime, Christmas. Wintertime's a bit higher, then pre-COVID, then actually COVID. The demand has fallen in general practice during the COVID crisis by about 20%. We've seen this across the board. Just one of those things. So yeah, do not fear the deluge. Patients, stop booking just in case. Because it's easy to get hold of the doctors. They don't think, oh, I better book 2 weeks in ahead. And in fact, Mahendra I was talking to earlier today, he said exactly that. Patients don't book ahead if you are easy to get hold of. And the GP day is different as well. So the GP day is now demand-led. What we've got here in the background is the pattern of demand through the day on a typical day. And the way that the GPs organize their day, the first couple of hours are really message and telephone. So it's rapid response. You know, you can do that in a minute, or telephone 3-4 minutes. You know, you've got break time. Later in the afternoon, you will do some face-to-face. During COVID, it's very low, but normally you would do a mixture of face-to-face and messaging. You might have your lunchtime, do your visits then. After lunch, catch up with new incoming demand, more face-to-face. The new demand is now quite low, so you're doing the face-to-face. You might have one person who's dealing with new demand coming in, and then people are going home. Might have one person on duty till closing time, and this can be quite flexible. Some people like to have rigid sections. Some people like to have a very fluid day. That is up to the individual to work out. So there is the essence of this system. We have been talking about this for some years. It is not an invention for COVID, and we're saying exactly the same things now as we have for some years. But people are listening more, if you like. They are more thinking, oh, actually, this can help us now, because we want to keep the workforce safe by reducing face-to-face contact and still maintain patient service. Patients have all the same medical needs they had before, and one of our concerns is people not presenting when they should. So we'll perhaps have a few questions, and then we can look at some of the data, because I've got a bunch of charts that show what's happened in the last few weeks with our practices. Tom, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Harry. Well, from first of all, I'd like to ask, obviously, if anyone in the participants has a question to put forward, first of all. I have a couple myself, of course, but I'm curious to see if some of my work colleagues here also have some questions. So if you do, please feel free to unmute your microphone and go ahead. We have... okay, comment there from Dinka. Well, from my side, I think also something I think for the participants to maybe think about is the sort of existing systems that are similar to AskMyGP in other countries across Europe and the rest of the world. I mean, obviously, there are most likely some forms of digital triage that exist, but I'm curious to see sort of what types of system they have and how widely implemented they are. Also, as a comment as well, I think Harry, this sort of thing can reduce the burden to other parts of the healthcare system hugely as well. Because I know in the UK, for example, if, as you said, you showed the rates of the amounts of calls you get, particularly in a Monday morning, is chaotic sometimes. I mean, you're on hold for 7 hours or so if you're very unlucky. And I think what a lot of people then might tend to do is to maybe go to the emergency room in the hospital instead, if they feel like they can't get an appointment in the GP. So I think that would reduce the burden hugely on A&E departments and that sort of thing in hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Actually, in curiosity, in terms of, you mentioned obviously it's very easy to use and encouraging people to use it now, especially with impressive people coming online with 99% within 23 hours, incredibly impressive. Have you had sort of any issues with encouraging sort of older patients to participate? I mean, I know myself,
Mm-hmm.
even getting my grandfather to use FaceTime over the past few weeks has been has been very difficult in itself. But I'm curious if you've had sort of pushback from more the elderly community in that sense.
Okay, can I will try to answer those. 99% is unusual.
Mm-hmm.
And this chart is a more typical practice. Can you see that now? But quite a rural practice and quite an elderly population.
Mm-hmm.
More elderly than average. And you can see that the three colours here. So,
I don't think your screen is on being shared there, Harry. Sorry, I think it's.
Okay. All right. So can you?
There we go.
Right. This is a practice called Ruskington. Mm-hmm. It is in Lincolnshire. It is a rural part of the UK. And the three colours are the dark blue is the patient online. The light blue is online, but by proxy, mostly parents, sometimes carers. And the orange is telephone. So they telephone in, reception takes the details. So you can see right from day one, they got 74% online, and they're about 80% overall. Then when we look at the demographics of those three groups, we have here the age groups from 0 to 100, males and females. On the left-hand column, we have the patients who are online for themselves. In the middle, we have for proxy, so mostly children here. The parent has gone on as a proxy, and that's online as well. And on the right-hand side, we have the people who didn't do online. They phoned in and reception put that on, and that's absolutely fine. But even to the age 75, half are online. And within the adults of age 15 to 65, almost everyone is online. And that's normal, really, for people around the developed world. So, be welcoming to even those who don't use online. In fact, one of our goals is to benefit non-users, because the users are online, they're saving GP time so that they have more time for non-users. So equality is very important here. And one of the ways of achieving that benefit is to get those who can use online to do so.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant to hear. I mean, I also think that also having the ability to, as you said, by telephone and also proxy is also really useful, because then, yeah, of course, if it's particularly for children, of course, but also for the elderly, if they find it more difficult with doing so themselves, then if they can have someone else do it for them, that's fantastic. And yeah, again, ensures that they can participate themselves.
Okay. Would it be useful to do a demonstration at this point? We do.
If that's a possibility, that would be that'd be great. And we have a question in the chat box as well, actually, in the meantime, from Iro, Maryland. In terms of what do you mean by sort of online? Is it via chat or Skype or through the application? Sorry, Harry, I don't think we can hear you through the screen. Your microphone is turned on, but I don't think.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, perfect.
Okay. Anyone can try this during our webinar. If you would like to try yourself, you can find this URL, demo.askmygp.uk. This is a website for a GP practice, which is demonstration only, not for real patients. But the practice website could look something like this, and it will have a widget here where you say get help now, click Ask My GP, and this will come to Ask My GP. I've already logged in here, but a new patient could put in their personal details, their email, their phone. If you would like to do that now, you can, and you can send a message in, and we'll answer it during the webinar. So we keep it very simple. We are aiming to help all patients. So what is your problem? My problem is fever and cough. So the first thing I can do is I can get self-help, and this could be any national help service, and I can then look at these kind of things that could be relevant to my needs, and I can get help. I can say when to seek medical advice. It's all help, self-help, and it's easy to access. 20% of patients do use that. But we'll go on to say I need to consult. So I'm going to consult my GP. I'm asking as a patient, is this about a new medical problem, existing medication query, or any other question? I'll say new medical problem, had a fever and cough. Who would you like help from? You can choose an individual GP. So I'll choose me there. How long have you had this problem? 4 days. Describe your symptoms, any idea of the course. Feel very hot. I have eaten a lot of chilies today. How can you help me with some medicine? You can attach a photo. About 3% of patients will attach a photo here, so skin conditions or anything like that are very useful. So they will write a few words in here. We try to keep the language very simple. And we find patients are good at expressing themselves in their own words. And then we ask them, how would you like us to resolve your request? Email, message, telephone, video, face-to-face, so that they have a free choice. This is a free choice. The largest one is telephone, and most people say as soon as possible. And then we say, thank you. Actually, it says we're now closed, but it's now past 6:30 here. So that's the patient's done, job done. Now it's going to come into our provider side. I can't pick up the provider side because the controls of the webinar are on top of that link. Nope. I'll find, here we go. This is the right link. So now I'm logged in as a provider, as a GP. And the questions we've asked are the same standard questions, just by computer. And that is going to come into our requests view. So if I look at the new requests here, we've done lots of trials here, and you can see mine here. It says fever and cough. And the patient has written this, and as the sorter, remember the sorter, they only have one job to do, which is to assign this to one GP. And it's actually, I'm the only one still on duty. And the little star says the patient named me as a GP. So I'm going to click that. And that's gone now into my list. If any of you send a request in from the website, then it will come into here. If you remember that website was demo.askmygp.uk. If you want to have a go now, you can, and you'll see that. Okay. Now, the time of doing this, I can also give it an urgency. So I can say, well, I'm going to call this emergency, and that will go to the top of the pile. I can look up patient details on my clinical system by date of birth or the registration number. Now, as a clinician, I wouldn't look at the new necessarily. I would look at my list. So here's a patient who's come in, been flagged emergency, fever and cough. I'm now being the doctor. I will read what the patient has written. I can decide how to communicate. So I may telephone the patient. Here's the patient telephone number. I may decide to bring the patient in which case I can send a message and they will book a face-to-face slot. Or I can message the patient to say, I think you should reduce the chilies in your diet. And I'll send that message. Simple. As the patient, I will see this message come up in my list. But also I will get an email to say, you have a new message. Because this may not come instantly. It may come generally within the hour. But the email is an alert, a notification to say, look at your message. So I'll just reply to this, good idea, genius. And that's going to come back into my provider view. So the patient is very impressed with my genius clinical skills, and I'll say, right, I'm going to close it there. And then I can just click await reply. So that will wait for 3 days. This is a demo, I've said 3 minutes. And if the patient wants to reply, they can. If not, it will complete. I'm going to copy these clinical details into my clinical record system. Just paste that in. And now I can go on to the next patient. So very simple to operate. The GP is making all the clinical decisions. They can decide how to consult with the patient. They can do a video call, by the way. Video is like that. Send a video request, and the patient will then see, please answer this. And then I can carry on with other work. And then when the patient answers the video, it'll say, go back, your patient is waiting. That's simply the way to consult. We can look at other settings within the system here, but I think for now that's enough. If anybody wants to send one in, then very welcome. Any questions at that point? Can the receptionist or nurse also make decisions? Yes, anybody can make decisions if they're qualified to do so. So, you know, this could be allocated to the group receptionists, and the receptionists, when they're in this area, they would see that request assigned to them, and they would manage that person. Okay. How to coordinate requests during leaves from the practice. Well, one of the things you'll see on here when you click AskMyGP is when is your GP working? So these are all the GPs or clinicians. These are the days and the times they work. And you can only choose them if they are working today. But in here, you can set the staff. You can set the staff time. So their weekly rota, what time are they working? What exceptions do they have? So holidays. The point being a question here about do you have protected time to manage patient requests? The key thing here, well, is this is the system for managing your patient requests. This is not a system on top of your existing system. The old system has gone. If you remember, we had this slide. Okay. Your system is like this. It's a hard life. Do you want to add another bit and make it a harder life and maybe go backwards? Because the easier life is the whole new system. So we go from here to here. We don't try to run the new system on top of the old system. That way you go crazy.
Harry, sorry, your microphone has cut off again, I think.
Okay, thanks. So going back to some of the data which may be interesting. This is what's happened in the last few weeks. So if we think about this area here pre-COVID, we're asking here, what is the patient preferred contact method? If you remember, there they were asked, would you like a face-to-face, that's in red, or message, that's the dark blue, or telephone in the light blue. And the way that the clinician decided to resolve is over here. They're not exactly the same, but quite similar ratios. Now what's happened is during lockdown, the patients have stopped asking for face-to-faces. And all of that has shifted to message or telephone. And similarly, the clinicians, if you look at the way they've resolved, again, have shifted from face-to-face to message and telephone. There is a tiny bit of video there, 0.7%. And that's 7 times greater than it was. But please don't think that video is a big thing here. Messaging is much, much bigger. And when we look at the flow from patient to clinician, on the left-hand side, the patient requested this in the last 3 weeks, mostly phone, some message and face-to-face. The GP decided on this, so they've got some overlap, mostly overlapping, but you may ask for a message and the GP says, well, no, I need to phone you, or I need to see you face-to-face. This is looking at service changes, and this is the top chart here is how many days to complete this request. And as you can see, it's been around 81, 82% for a long time. In recent weeks, that proportion resolved same day has increased to 86, now 90% same day. And in the lower chart, you've seen how the median number of minutes to close the request was about 180. It is now halved. It's now nearly 90 minutes. So it's actually faster. Patient service has improved during the COVID crisis. And as a result of that, we've seen patient satisfaction go up from high 60s, 70s to 84%. So patient satisfaction again has improved in the last month. Okay, so some more questions. If you've got any more questions about the data, very welcome to look at.
Sorry, Harry, your sound has dropped off again.
If you want to see the data live, you can just go to the website askmygp.uk/live. And Ulrich asks, fee-for-service based system, or how is the doctor's time compensated? The way NHS works is GPs have a registered list and they have a fully capitated system. So they get so many pounds per patient on the list per year, but there is no fee for service. So it is in the interests of the GP to help the patient in the most efficient, appropriate way. They are not incentivized to see them or to telephone message. It's just what does the patient need? And that works very, very well. So the doctors are compensated by number of patients on list and a few quality payments and things like that. Doctors do very well. Is it generalized around the UK? We serve just over 2% of UK population. So I can't say general, but it's actually proving very effective at the moment and popular. There are some places like Greater Manchester where it's becoming very popular, and there are others where there's very little. But quite a lot is happening by word of mouth. GPs are saying, "Yeah, this is helping us." Very welcome to look on the homepage and see some videos. In terms of legal restrictions, there is no difference because all the decision making is made by the GP. We have no AI, we have no automated decision making. We are communicating between the patient and the doctor. So there's no effect on their professional indemnity insurance. So yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting to see how people in Britain, suddenly GPs are doing all telephone triage because they can't see many patients. And now they're realizing that actually digital triage is so much more efficient, even though many of the patients they will answer by phone because they know more about the problem beforehand. It's more efficient for them. The data is encrypted. Yes, there are very, very strict information governance and data security regulations in the UK and across the whole of Europe. And we need to comply with all of those. So yes, encryption, password, use within VPN are all required. Integrating the system directly with the EHR, yes, in theory it can be, and we are integrating as fast as we can with some UK systems. But what we find is that a very simple interoperability works really well. So if you remember when we completed this or wait reply, I'll just click complete. I've resolved it by message. Pasting those details into the record works very well, and that could be one page or a few words. Copy, and we link to the record using the date of birth or the reference number if there is one, NHS number. You know, all of the details are copied across. And one of the things that's important is to make it really easy. If you have lots of you know, PDF attachments and so on, the records in future become difficult to access. And the GPs love the simplicity of this. Question on, have we managed to use some data to monitor disease pattern? The answer is yes, we can. We don't have access to patient data, but we can do anonymous text searches. So, for example, we've been able to track interest in COVID-19, and it was nothing. Suddenly, a huge rise, and at one point it was 11% of patient requests contained references to COVID, coronavirus, fever. That's fallen off now down to about 3%. So we can do those anonymous word searches. We've done a few. Do you need NHS special allowance? In the UK, the GPs have a choice of systems they may use. We're keen to encourage choice, so long as certain standards have been met to do with data security, information governance, clinical safety. So we have very strict laws on clinical safety. The system must be designed to be safe in all possible ways. So it's tightly regulated, but they don't have choice. Yeah. Ulrich asks, have NHS provided guidelines on remote digital triage? That's an interesting question, because I might even have it here. Yes, the answer is they have. I may not have the reference here, but I can provide it. Is it this one? No. It's not. I haven't got the reference here. It's based on what we've said. It's actually, if we go to our website on how it works, it's based on that. That is NHS advice, except they've changed it a bit. So interesting times. Christy says, can I use it from Ukraine? You can certainly use our demo system. You can try from Ukraine. What would be interesting is to say, well, you know, should we translate this into Ukrainian? There is no reason in principle why we can't translate it. We need to be able to supply in a way which is suitable for Ukraine and secure. But it's delivered over the internet. It's delivered through browsers. So we've got, you know, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Edge, all fine. In terms of the question on merged assessment tool linked to QoF, no, we don't. The GPs do QoF business. What we do is provide reports around how it's performing. So the report section, if I can go back to it, if we look at reports here, they are inbuilt, and they are concerning demand. This is demo practice, so it's not typical, but you can see the daily pattern. You can see our pattern of closing requests. You can see completion times, continuity of care, and so all of these are built in. It is up to the practice to decide how to use them. We use this to help improve their system. Question, how do you trade off algorithm between sensitivity and specificity? Thank you, yeah. We don't do algorithms. We get the patient to answer questions, the same questions every time. Slightly different on, is it new or is it existing? And there is no algorithm there. We ask them the questions, we give that to the GPs. We have one algorithm, if you like, which is when a request comes in, if the patient is under 1 year, child under 1 year, we call it urgent automatically. Everything else, the practice staff decide how urgent it is. Most will stay as routine. So no algorithms. The clever part of this system is what happens between the patient and the doctor. And we don't do that. The patients and the doctors do that. So any more questions? Carmen, you need to go. Thank you very much. Yes, we all want to return to meeting, greeting, seeing our friends.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Harry. That was great to hear. I mean, we had a great discussion as well. I think there's some really interesting questions and discussion going on there. And I mean, from your side, it's what I've been looking at on AskMyGP through the websites and some of the reports. It's a great platform for triage systems. It's brilliant. Actually, out of interest, just quickly, how many practices in the UK have now implemented this system?
We're on about 150.
Okay.
And about 1.5 million people.
Wow. Fantastic. And I mean, yeah, I think given the situation, I think it would be, even more so, I'd imagine, as you said, given the situation with COVID, I think it's increasing that vastly.
You've mentioned, does the digital platform reduce the need for admin staff? It frees them from really quite boring tasks. So if we think about overwork and rework, a lot of admin staff are wasting time explaining to patients why they can't help. So they are the first to benefit because now they can help and they can be employed doing useful things rather than, sorry, we can't help. So yes, there's a big benefit for admin staff. Okay, well, thank you very much for hosting, Tom, and thank you for joining from around Europe. And thank you for listening in English.
Brilliant, thank you, Harry. Just to quickly say, obviously all of the presentation and the comments as well will be saved and put on via our website and YouTube as well. So feel free to have a look through again. And of course, looking at the data on AskMyGP website as well. Again, thank you to everyone and all the best, obviously, given the current circumstances, and enjoy the rest of your week and weekend. Thanks again, Harry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.